You want to have a look. See, sure.
Yeah. Without saying like
Robert Durst.
Right. But I mean, without saying like, well, listen, it was 25 years ago, so we don't really care anymore. Like, maybe just.
Yeah. No, sometimes you want to get an answer.
Yeah.
I totally understand that. And that's, since we are in the business of solving unsolved mysteries, obviously, I'm pro solving that mystery.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, sometimes it's a little unfair when that much time has gone by. It can be, there can be an element
on
of
circumstantial evidence alone.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But anyway, to wrap up our case here, apparently in 2010, I think we mentioned this earlier, the prosecutor general did apply for a search warrant to obtain those tissue samples that had been collected, and they were being held at
Stan.
For Stan, and they were being held at the Karolinska Hospital, and so apparently they wanted to see there was the original bag. There was like a blue towel next to the bag that had some hairs on it, which were saved by the police, and so what they wanted to do was, I guess, compare DNA in the tissue samples from Stan to the DNA in those hairs, and see if they could actually, establish a connection.
Not that it would be 100% proof, but it'd be something.
It might be enough to actually resolve the case to everybody's satisfaction.
Sure.
And as we mentioned, I've not heard anything about how their testing went.
Yeah.
And
maybe it's still in the queue.
Yeah, maybe. And so it's, I want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt and believe the best of everyone. Although
that's nice of you.
Yeah, I know, but except you two. But totally. It has been mentioned. I'm not the first person who's mentioned this. Considering their conduct in the case, considering that 2 lives were destroyed, if it turned out that Stan's DNA matched those hairs found there, after everything they did to Teet Harm and Thomas Olligan, then oh my God, I could see where there might be a little embarrassment factor.
Well, here's the worst part is that Teet and Thomas both sued the state,
and they were turned down.
And they were told, no, you can't do this.
Yeah, too freaking bad. They had their medical licenses taken away.
Yeah,
from them.
They have gainful employment that they are highly trained for. They cannot practice.
They cannot. Yeah,
in Sweden at least.
Yeah. Or probably anywhere.
I kind of have a feeling they probably would have a hard time getting jobs. Most places.
I think the stink has followed them everywhere. I have no idea what those guys do for a living or how they survive. But
selling their story to tabloids.
Yeah, maybe. But and so it might be kind of tough.
Yes.
It might be. You could even see it from like not wanting to pay out millions of dollars for a wrongful prosecution or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because they might just sort of sit on the results if it turned out the results, actually exonerated these two.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's what happened. I think for me, Stan is the obvious best suspect, even though he's, I don't think there's enough evidence to even send him away unless the DNA test did come back positive.
Yeah, and even then it's kind of like you have to then be able to actually link that towel to the crime.
Yeah, well,
because like
right next to the bag.
Well, even then though, I mean, I would say, the chances of somebody just having the really, really serious, unfortunate luck.
Unless Stan got a haircut next to the bag of body parts, unbeknownst to him.
I would say that's enough for me, probably.
That would be enough to shut this case down.
And he died in 1987, too.
He died in 1987.
So I guess maybe, it's kind of like, I don't know, fine.
And the case, of course, the statute of limitations expired, so he can't be prosecuted for it, even if they can match his DNA.
Yeah, I don't know.
And revive him.
Yeah. But at least for these other people that have been accused, at least they would get some resolution.
You would think, but I think, again, that whole trial by public opinion is rough to ever overcome.
It's that's one of the reasons too why it's I think important for the police when they're investigating somebody to kind of keep a lid on the whole thing.
Yeah.
So you don't destroy people's lives.
Totally.
Yeah. But anyway, that's enough of editorializing for me. That is our story. The murder of Katarina.
By the Mad Vampire.
By the Mad Vampire Doc, yes, exactly. You're probably going to be wanting to. Oh, did you guys have any more theorizing before I wrap up there?
Listen, I'm not going to steer into Weekly World News garbage zone. So,
well, we will. I know that all of our listeners are going to want to read that article, so we will post a link to it. on our website, along with links to some other stuff.
Can't they just go to Murderpedia and see the crap fest that is this story?
Oh, yeah, they put a lot of crap fest. The Murderpedia's got some really ludicrous stuff on there. Their bot was seriously drunk that day. Yeah, Murderpedia took a little credibility hit for me, at least when I read their page on these guys, on this murder. I used to think somewhat. No, I don't think so.
All right.
But anyway,
so no, got nothing.
So yeah, but we'll have links on our website, which is thinkingsidewayspodcast.com, where you can download the episodes. You can buy merch, yes, T-shirts and mugs and all sorts of good stuff, and read some of our research that we will link to. Also, of course, you're probably going to want to send us an email about this. Of course, you will. So our email address is thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. Oh, and what else? We're on Facebook and other social media outlets. We're on Facebook, where we have a page and a group. So like the page, join the group, and answer the questions. They're easy. There's like 2 of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of activity going on there. We're also on Twitter, where we are Thinking Sideways. Lots of great stuff there, including pictures of my cats.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and what else?
Instagram?
It's not photo.
Photogram?
Instagram. We are on Instagram now, where we are Thinking Sideways Podcast.
Yes.
Don't go to the Thinking Sideways only guys, because they are up to no good. Who knows what they're doing?
Who knows?
But, yeah. They took
Just follow it from our page. It's way easy that way. You'll get to the right one.
True.
A very, very good way. Also, we have a subreddit, Thinking Sideways, where there's any good activity out there, by the way, lately? Devin? No? Maybe
always. It's so far in the future. Why do you ask this question?
Yeah,
good point.
She's not really a time traveler, even though we accuse her of it.
Even though everybody thinks I'm the doctor.
Yeah. Okay. So there's stuff going on there. What else? I mentioned that you can find our episodes on our website. There's other places you can find them, too, believe it or not. We're on iTunes, where you can also, besides finding the episodes, you can subscribe. You can also leave a review, leave a rating. We like high ratings, like that would be a 5. That's our preference. And also you can find us on streaming services like Stitcher and some of the other ones I can name, but I'll just leave it at Stitcher. All right, well, that's it for this week. So until next week, ciao.
Bye.
Heads off to you.
Bye.
Oh.
Thinking Sideways is not brought to you by Unicorns on Unicycles. Instead, it's supported by the generous donations of our listeners on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/thinkingsideways to learn more. And thanks.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Insufficient data to formulate a decline.
What?
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways, the podcast. I'm Devin, joined as always by
Steve,
Joe,
and somebody else apparently.
Yeah. Okay,
and these
Joe.
words out all the
and
time.
Joe. Yeah, that's true. He
I
does.
do.
Today we're going to talk about a mystery.
Oh, really?
A pretty big mystery. Actually, kind of one that's touted as one of the biggest unsolved mysteries.
This is one of those ones that you'll hear referred to on the lists on the internet of like locked room mysteries kind of style, where it's the perfect mystery.
Yeah.
It's always ranked up in there.
It is, and I have to say, it's a puzzler for sure. But for as big a mystery it is, there's not.
It's not that big of a
much to
mystery.
it.
It's not that big.
Yeah.
Well, but still, people have been chewing over it for a long time. A lot of famous
Absolutely.
people, like Raymond Chandler, for example, says it's his favorite mystery of all time. Or said it was. He's dead. But,
He might still say.
yeah, he's
We haven't
saved in
tackled that
heaven.
mystery yet.
Yeah. He's in heaven. He knows the answer now. You have to have a seance and find out.
Yeah. Okay, so, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Indeed.
Dive in? Okay. In the evening of Monday, January 20th of 1931, sometime between 6:45 and 8:45 p.m., Julia Wallace was beaten to death, brutally. Her husband, William Herbert Wallace, seemed a really likely suspect and was arrested, tried, and convicted. So what's the mystery? Well, it turns out the evidence was really, really lacking in the case against Mr. Wallace.
Pretty hugely, I would
so
say.
shoddy, in fact, that the Criminal Court of Appeals officially pardoned him and declared he was innocent and totally said, nope, he's not guilty at all. He's free to go. And nobody knows who did this crime.
No.
Nobody knows who murdered Julia Wallace.
There's a few suspects, but yeah, it's interesting. When he was tried, I think his demeanor kind of did him in. He was kind of
This
cold.
is another one of those Bramber cases.
Like Jeremy
Yeah.
Bamber, yeah.
Yep.
And he was apparently not liked by the jury because the judge, when he was instructing the jury, all but told them they had to let him off.
Find him off, yeah.
And they convicted him anyway.
Because the evidence was just so weak.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah.
of
The evidence
course.
was actually kind of non-existent, really.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, so
So let's tell the story.
let's solve the mystery.
Well, let's tell the story first.
Okay.
Okay, and I want to just introduce you to the two main characters, I guess. The first character would be one Mrs. Wallace. Her maiden name was Dennis. She was Julia Dennis originally. She married Mr. Wallace in March of 1914. She was significantly older than Mr. Wallace. I think it was 17 years, according to the dates I could find on the wiki.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of contention over that because for a long time, people said that they were around the same age.
Yeah, everybody thought that they were definitely contemporaries, and then I think somebody was able to find her original birth
I
certificate.
think it was in the last decade or two.
Yeah, I think so too. Which said that she was 17 years older than him, so she was 53 when they were married, and he was 36.
Uh-huh.
Which is quite it's a reversal of roles for the time.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's also
kinda is.
that's still a big age gap.
Oh, yeah, but it
For
used
the
to be
time.
the old man would marry the younger woman.
Yeah.
It's
Especially
just-
back in those days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people kind of point to that as maybe something that had to do with the murder.
He found
I
out
think
how old
that's
she
silly.
was. And
I think that's
offer.
I think it's really silly,
Real
but
age
I've
came
seen that tossed around, so just to go ahead and throw that out.
Actually, I think that her age might have had, if he did indeed kill her age might have had something to do with it. You want to hear about it now?
No,
No? Okay.
I don't. No, we
Okay.
can talk about that later.
All right.
Julia was originally the daughter of a, quote, ruined alcoholic farmer, unquote. And there's really, like, nothing about her except for that she played the piano quite well. I think she was an accomplished pianist, is how they describe her. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't even have her own Wikipedia page, despite being the victim of this crime.
Loser.
No, I mean, it's interesting. I think there's a lot to be said about a victim. I think that the victim really informs the crime a lot of times.
Very true.
So I am sad that there's not more information about her out there, because I think it just seems like we would be able to know more about the crime, maybe, or
Well, everybody
something?
focused on her husband, and
Oh, yeah.
so details of her were just left behind. And that may be why we won't ever be able to solve it, because
Yeah.
there may be things about her that we just don't have access to anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was able to find some quotes from some people about her.
She was described as meek
Uh,
and kind of uninteresting, and
Yeah, me. Yeah, there was one person who was looking in on them for about 3 weeks in 1923.
Mm-hmm.
Her name was Florence Mary Wilson, and William Wallace had a bout of pneumonia,
Mm-hmm.
and so this person was basically looking after them.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that she thought Julia was a poor housekeeper who basically laid around and did nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And she said she had no enthusiasm for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And she said she didn't really think that they were a happy couple. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so there's a little bit of insight. Of course, that's a small window. It doesn't
Little.
necessarily mean she was always that way.
Yeah.
But there were other people also who said that they didn't really think it was a happy marriage.
yeah, it's interesting. People didn't seem to think it was a happy marriage, but they lived in this kind of townhouse, row house situation that's pretty common in London, Liverpool, I guess. But they shared walls with their next door neighbors, and their neighbors said they never heard them raise voices or really talking at all, which may have been a sign, I guess, that they didn't talk that much. But
It could be they had their own,
but
did
they
their own
didn't.
thing.
Yeah, but
Well,
they
yeah,
didn't
there's
fight
definitely
loudly. At least.
There's two different ways to go about hating each other that
Mm-hmm.
we've seen it's people with their relationship. They either yell at each other or they say nothing.
Yeah.
And so it may be that's why nobody heard anything.
Yeah.
So they just did their own thing and ignored each other.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so let's talk a little
probably.
bit about Wallace, Mr.
Okay.
Wallace. We're going to refer to him as Wallace through the rest of this thing, because apparently he's the only one that really matters. And then we'll call Julia Wallace Julia.
Okay.
Okay. Wallace was born in 1878 And he left school at 14 when he started to train to be a draper's assistant. He got a job with the company that outfitted Her Majesty's Armed Forces and the Colonial Indian and Foreign Services in Manchester. He spent 5 years with the company, then transferred to Calcutta, India, then Shanghai 2 years after that with the same company. His youngest brother lived in Shanghai, so there was a familial connection. He had a bum kidney, so he had to return to England in 1907.
He didn't want to have it cut out in Shanghai.
Yeah, for some reason.
Wanted to have it done in England instead.
Yeah, he decided to come back to England. So he did actually have the operation. He had it cut out. And then there's about a 4-year gap in between there until he became an election agent in 1911, where he met Julia. And then they got married in 1914, as we said. And then they moved to Liverpool in 1915 because he had lost his job. And
yeah, it was because it was didn't he lose his job because the position of elections was just basically totally eliminated? Isn't that the reason?
I think it was.
It was some crown rule that eliminated all
Yeah.
of the work that he was doing.
Yeah, it was totally eliminated. So he lost his job, and he called his dad and was like, "Dad, I need a job." And his father helped him get a job with the Prudential Assurance Company as a collections agent. And the Prudential is life insurance company by and large. And they're based in Liverpool. So, yeah, the couple is described as meek. Wallace had an unusually curious brain for the time, I gather. In that, I guess it wasn't typical for a person, particularly a man, but a person to take interest in kind of a wide variety of topics. But Wallace did. He supplemented his time and income by lecturing in chemistry. He had an interest in botany. He was a violinist. He was an amateur electrician. He had a electricity lab.
He played with electricity at home?
Yeah, at home. And he loved chess. And he was, in fact, a member of the Liverpool Central Chess Club, not to be confused with the Liverpool Chess Club or the Central Chess Club, because those are two other things.
Oh, okay.
And that's a very serious offense to be taken, apparently.
Oh, really?
In my research, I found.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is this chess club still in existence? Do they still meet at the same place?
No. The Central Chess Club is still a thing, I think, but
This particular one, I'm pretty sure, was eventually disbanded.
Yeah. It was pretty small when Wallace was going to it. They weren't very good chess players, and it was a small chess club, and then this whole thing happened, and
it was kind of a third-rank club.
Yeah.
Yeah, really? Okay.
Yeah. So actually, our story kind of begins at a meeting of this club, so we want to just transition into that?
Yeah, definitely. Let's
Awesome.
swing into it.
Cool. So January 19th, 1931, Wallace was meant to be competing in a chess championship over a number of months. And so this was one match that he was supposed to be competing in. His game was scheduled to start at 7:45 p.m. And at 7:20 p.m., I believe, the chess club received a phone call from a R.M.
Qualtrough.
Qualtrough.
Is it Qualtrough or Qualtro?
I think it's Qualtrough.
Yeah.
He was looking for Wallace, and he left a message with the club captain, whose name was Samuel, to call upon Mr. Qualtrough. That's how he's going to say from now on. Qualtrough. The next evening at about 7:30 p.m. at 25 Menlove Gardens East, regarding an insurance issue, because one of Wallace's jobs was to sell insurance as well as collect insurance dues and things like that. And so it seemed that this gentleman had some insurance business to carry out.
I think that's one thing. It took me a while to figure out, and a lot of people aren't familiar with this now, but in those days, you had to walk around and collect payment from your customers.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the big things he did, is he walked around town all day
And paid,
picking up money.
Yeah, got money from people.
Probably kept him in good shape.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mr. Wallace obviously wasn't there at the time, and the caller did ask Beatty, is Mr. Wallace expected to be there tonight? And he said, I don't know if I can expect him or not, because it turns out he was fairly delinquint in his attendance.
Yeah, he only
the chess
showed up
club.
a couple of times a month, I hear.
I thought they said once a fortnight. So once every 2 weeks, 14 days-ish. So he didn't know, Beatty didn't know if Wallace was going to show up or not. He said if he was going to be there, he'd be there soon, and he'd relay the message. Wallace said that he had never heard of Qualtra, and he also hadn't heard of Menlove's Gardens East, and a few other members of the chess club discussed it, and I think he said, well, I've got a Scotch tongue in my brain or in my head or something like that.
The weirdest phrase.
It's a very odd phrase, meaning that he would find it. They all figured it was just off Menlove Avenue somewhere, and that'd be that.
It must exist.
Yeah,
and that's the way it was, because I did some reading on this, because I didn't understand why this guy would just go trooping across town, not knowing where he was going. That would freak me out. But it just turns out I know this has got to be off of that, so I'm just going to walk down it until I find it.
Yeah, and one of the guys at